Hey everyone, it's Megan and Bronwyn as usual. And this month we're joined by Jan Schaefer, and she is blessing us with her presence here today for today's new moon reading. With all that, I get to go go for it, Bronwyn.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure we're not alone, Megan, in feeling a little bit depleted and burnt out under these skies. So we are in the midst of a really potent eclipse season. So these come along once every 6 months when the sun, which is our shining self, our ego drive, our aspiration, that's what the sun is in our astrology chart, and the moon, our feeling heart, come together in the sky with the lunar nodes. That's what defines an eclipse. So twice a year, we have a new moon and a full moon that are eclipses, a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. Whether or not we can see them where we are on the planet, they affect us astrologically. And because the nodes are tied into this, those are the sensitive points in the chart where our life path shifts. And if we think back to how humans have always seen eclipses as these dramatic and uncanny events that take us outside of our normal day-to-day. And they behave that way in the astrology chart too. They become opportunities for intense transformation, for big shifts in the life path. And generally, they're just times of really heightened energy. So eclipse seasons for astrologers are notoriously busy times, right? Because these are the times in the year when stuff bubbles to the surface for all of us. Because those luminaries, our heart and our aspirations, are hanging out close to the nodes, our sensitive choices about our life path, these tend to be the times when we are making really important choices, or some event comes up out of the blue that may be a sudden ending or a sudden beginning that takes us by surprise and can be either really exciting or really painful and difficult to manage. And we see both of those with eclipses. And again, eclipses are notoriously difficult to work with as astrologers for predicting, because by their nature, they're unpredictable and uncanny events. So we always enter into eclipse season with knowing, like, I always clear my calendar as much as possible. I always pull down on self-care, try to feed myself really well, try to stay hydrated, just all of your basic body self-care as well as spiritual self-care, doubling down on your mantra practice, on your yoga practice. All of these things will really help us to handle whatever it is that comes our way. I mean, that's common sense for life, right? But also just to handle those energies. So yeah, I guess, Megan, do you have anything to add to that before I talk about the exact nature of this eclipse?
Yeah, not really. Just, I mean, I don't know why I continue to be stunned, shocked, surprised that the two things are aligning, that, the astrological energies are saying this and I'm feeling this. And I just keep wanting it to, I don't know, there's times where I feel like I almost want it to not be so. It feels to some extent, sometimes I feel like what I said before, you kind of feel like you're being batted around by the universe, like it's a cat with a tail that wants to kind of whip you around a bit. And so just like deeply personal and pretty significant beginnings and endings in my life right now. And both of them feel like too much. So, but that's the other thing that yoga offers me and a lot of other people is respite in the idea that this too shall pass, because everything is cyclical. And also my deep commitment and other people who are on a spiritual path, to lean into that intensity. And we might as well, if we're going to go through it, we might as well get some use out of it. That's sort of I'm trying to approach it, use out of it, meaning growth, transformation, release, healing, all of those words. But Jan, I heard you chuckling a couple times as Bronwyn was speaking. Is this like hitting home for you too?
Oh, it's incredible, because I think of, when you say there are new beginnings, there's like 3 or 4 major things that's happening in my life as well right now. And I was like, huh. So it's the stars that's doing this to me. It's the planets, and they're wonderful things, but I find it interesting that you're saying, take care of yourself so that you can keep going. And I think, yeah, I'm the one that says yes, yes, yes. And I have to know, okay, am I juggling too much right now? Or it's all going to be fine? And the universe has given me opportunities. And I think I don't want to say no to them right now. I want to keep saying yes. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and
So
we can dig
what's up?
into that. Yeah, I was just going to tell Jan that we could dig into that a little more specifically and even start to answer that question when we peek at her chart. Yeah, it's a lot of times astrology is fun, and it's fun to have that feeling that the universe is, and instead of feeling like I know you were joking, Jan, but it can feel like, oh, the planets are doing this to us.
Yeah.
Of course, the perspective is more like we're co-creating, or we are a reflection. We're reflecting each other. So we're all enmeshed in the same energy.
Right.
Although it really can feel sometimes like, will you stop? Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And we feel that during eclipse season. But I think, well, I would just like to dive in and talk a little bit more specifically about what these two eclipses. So we have, whenever we're thinking about how am I going to navigate this eclipse season, we think about what is the narrative of this season, because each eclipse season has a different narrative. And it depends on, is the eclipse a solar eclipse or a lunar? Solar eclipses bring outward changes that move us to make internal changes. Lunar eclipses bring internal shifts that motivate us to transform externally. So one begins inwardly and the other begins outwardly. They always come in pairs, sometimes trios. So we have a chance either to do the inner work first and then manifest it in the world, or to have the outer occurrence happen and then deal with it emotionally. You guys can probably guess already what the narrative of this season is. We're getting the outer events with the solar eclipse first. And then in 2 weeks on the full moon, we're going to be integrating that into our feeling heart with the lunar eclipse. The other thing we look at is which node is involved, because the nodes do really different things. The north node manifests. It's the entryway. The nodes are portals in and out of the invisible realms, which sounds very esoteric, but actually is just about that line we walk as humans between the inner world and the outer, what's available to us in the imaginal realms, our dreams, our aspirations, our thoughts, and then what we create in the world, the invisible and the manifest realm. So on the north node, we bring stuff in from our own imaginations, from the spiritual realm. It's manifesting, which is a totally overused word, but that's what we do. We make an idea real. So that's what the north node does. So this first solar eclipse is a north node eclipse. So outer events that are manifesting new things in our life. That sounds great, but it's neutral. The new thing that you're manifesting can be fantastic, or it can be really difficult. That depends on your chart and a lot of other factors. And then the south node is a releasing node. So we give stuff up. So we give stuff up to the invisible realms. I call it the cosmic compost, right? It's where we grieve. It's also where we make offerings and where we pray. So it's that beautiful interface between us and the invisible. So this eclipse season, we have north node manifesting solar outward eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries, the spark of life, that the drive within us. That's where we are today. And then in 2 weeks, we have a south node releasing lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. So dramatic outer events that are spurring us forward, whether we want to go or not. North node, Aries, solar, followed by deep, difficult, challenging, but really fruitful psychological integration that causes us to release old patterns. South node, Scorpio.
Couldn't it get spread out a little bit?
Yeah, that's what's so hard about eclipse season. Oh my God.
You're killing me.
I know.
Okay.
You need a little breath there, Megan?
Okay. Sorry, Bronwyn.
Well, for everybody watching at home, you want to know, where is this going to happen in my life? So you're having the solar eclipse today, that outward event, that's a new beginning, that's manifesting something that you have to deal with, or that you're excited to have in your life, or both, in your Aries house. I have a graphic. Can I show a graphic?
Absolutely. I wonder.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Now I
So,
think you can see or can share.
yes. Okay. Now I just have to find it. Oh, help me to find this. Okay.
Like this little
This
part I can edit
Other
out.
things on my, there, now you should be able to see this. Okay.
Yep.
Here's a little graphic. What you need to do is look here. You need to know your rising sign. So we have a Taurus ascendant in the house, and Megan, I know I should know.
Virgo. I'm
You're
Virgo rising. Yeah.
double Taurus and a double Virgo.
Mhm.
So Taurus, this is happening in your 12th house of karma, retreat, and releasing. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at your chart. And Megan, for you, it's in your 8th house of debt, investment, and shadow work. The 8th house is also anywhere where we share resources with others and our old family patterns. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's happening. That's the solar eclipse, your Aries house. 2 weeks from now, the Scorpio eclipse that closes the story for the Taurus ascendants and everybody else. You can find your rising sign here. That's going to be in your 7th house of partnership. And that's not only life partners, but how you partner with anyone, how you partner with your clients, how you partner with business partners, any face-to-face one-on-one relationship in your life. So you'll be doing some deep releasing around old patterns in partnership in order to really embrace this thing that is coming in right now on the Aries eclipse. That's for Jan. And then for Megan, you are going to be working in the 3rd house when it comes home to your heart. So learning new things, like taking on beginner's mind, like, okay, I'm an expert in so many things, but I have to go back to the beginning with this. Working with siblings, readjusting in sibling relationships, and really working on your communication skills. So that's where you're going to be releasing in order to work with whatever it was that came in on the solar eclipse.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can post a link to this as well when we when I post it on my YouTube channel, so that you guys can download that chart. So that's what we've got. And I'd love to finesse this a little bit for Jan, because one of the reasons that I pulled Jan's chart is because her Taurus placement, so she's a double Taurus, she has both her ascendant and sun in the sign of Taurus, and then squaring her moon in Aquarius. And the placement of that sun and ascendant is right across from where the moon is going to be sitting during that lunar eclipse. So we know that this is of extra significance for Jan and for anybody else who has placements in mid-Scorpio or late Aries. The eclipses affect all of us, but you're going to feeling it really strongly if you have placements, and I mean planets or points, if you know your chart, at 28, 29 Aries or 14, 15, 16 Taurus, Scorpio. So what I'm thinking for Jan, with the first eclipse landing in her 12th house of spirituality, karma, and the things that we hide from ourselves, is that there's been some illumination around things that the 12th house is really interesting, because it's where we do a lot of really important spiritual work. It's where we meet our fate and where we dissolve our karma. It's really fascinating house. It's also kind of that in our own blind spot. So it's those things that other people might be really aware of, these beautiful gifts that we have, we might not see them ourselves. Same applies to the self-sabotaging behaviors that we all have. They live in the 12th house. So our gifts that we hide from ourselves are not so gifty gifts that we hide from ourselves. When the sun is moving through that house, as it does every year for you at this time, Jan, you have that opportunity to illuminate some of those things, like illuminate hidden gifts and illuminate hidden obstructions. So I think some of that is happening around maybe the way that you assert yourself in the world and really wanting to take on a new persona in the way that you communicate and assert yourself in the world. Not because anything was wrong with the way that you were doing it, but just because you're ready for a change. And the real work for you is going to be around that that lunar eclipse that's coming up in 2 weeks, because there's so many important placements in your chart that are tied into that. And I think it's going to give you a really beautiful opportunity to do some relational work and some selfish assertion and self-acceptance work that you just haven't had the bandwidth for up until now. And it's time. And in order to really figure out how you're going to have the energy for all these beautiful new opportunities that are coming in, you're going to be able to dig deep into like what has happened in past relationships that really I need to let go of now, and what do I need to really declutter in my psyche in order to embrace these new dreams, and in order to really feel like the self that I'm. It's interesting because Megan was saying how you're such an established figure and an authority in the yoga community. And I understand that like after a certain age, we tend to sort of accrue this authority in our field, whether we've really wanted to or not, just because we've been working hard and we're good at what we do. And sometimes that makes it more difficult to transform ourselves or to reinvent ourselves when we're ready to, because people have a lot of projections and expectations around us as a mentor, as an expert. So there may be some inner work of, again, like the same for Megan, like allowing yourself to have that Aries beginner's mind, because so much of Aries is about the youthful spirit that drives us forward. And I think these are some of the ideas that you're going to be playing with. And I wonder if that resonates for you.
I am, yes. So if I may share an experience I had. So we have this wonderful student at the yoga studio that Paul Donahue, who comes in and plays instruments. He'll come to my class. He'll play music while we're doing yoga, and then during Shavasana. I went to his yoga, I went to his studio, and he did a personal one-on-one session with me. And when he played the hand drum, also known as the buffalo drum, it really spoke to my body. So when he came to my class just this past a week ago, Tuesday night, I put my students in Shavasana, and usually I go around and do an assist. But before he started playing, I turned to him and I pointed just to the drum, and he nodded his head yes. He picked up the drum and he started playing it. He started playing it. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed just standing there, and I was taking it all in, like, oh, this is really beautiful. But then in my mind, I was saying, wait, I'm the instructor. I have to go do the assist. So I actually had to shake my body so I could walk around and give people assist. It was really beautiful. I had other students comment on it. And afterwards, I talked to Paul a little bit, and I went home and I just thought to myself, I need to buy a drum and I need to learn how to drum, because I need to be able to share this sound with more of my students. Yeah. So when you talk about a beginner sign, I have never played a drum before. And so I hope I have the rhythm that I can do it, or just play it and invoke the response, or not necessarily the same as mine, but invoke some kind of response, or to at least reach them with this drum. So yeah, that's one of the things. And then there's more. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And that experience that you shared is so, I think it could stand in as a symbol for this whole transformation that you're going through, and how I feel like there's a pull. Sometimes when we see eclipses on the ascendant descendant axis, we feel that pull in two directions within us. And that moment evokes that so beautifully, like the pull to be the teacher, the authority, to keep things moving, to come up into your rational conscious mind and keep going. That much more profound and visceral and spiritual call of the drum directly to your body, and what you realized in that moment. And I think if you hold that tension as you go into your decision making over the coming months, just that tension between that call and pull of your sacred body, and then what your mind is telling you about what your quote unquote responsibilities are as a quote unquote authority, you're going to abandon one for the other. But just that I think it's a really interesting tension, and that we see that tension expressed in the chart with there's a few things. You're having your nodal reversal, so it's a real point of transition into a new 9-year path for you. These eclipses are hitting the ascendant descendant, so you're really figuring out, like, what do I owe to myself versus what I owe relationally, and how can I give even more to myself, and how can I give inspiration to myself? And because Taurus, the somatic spiritual piece is always so important, and that's really being highlighted by these eclipses. How can you stay true to that call of the sacred body? And I think that the way that you've responded to that call is just beautiful and so perfect for these transits. And I think it's testament to the work that you've done as a yogi that you have that kind of access to just being pulled to the right choice, right? And not fighting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I knew there would be a story just because of that full moon landing where it does right across from the sun and the ascendant. It's like,
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if this, what is very, very beginning of something now, doesn't over the next 9 years weave itself into your work in ways that you can't even imagine yet.
Do you have any tiny inklings of what that might be, Jan?
Of how the drumming might weave into,
Or anything
just
that
the
feels
spirit?
like it's sort of taking root right now, like some new inkling or some new nudge or new pull that's just maybe starting to present itself right now.
In my teachings or in other
just in
part
your
of my
life.
life?
In life, I think. Yeah.
It's the identity and work in the world. Identity, work in the world, and then partnership is affected by it.
Yeah.
And I think here's what to look for. 9 months from now, check in with yourself and see if there's another choice point. And then 18 months from now, check in to see, and that's when you'll be able to fully answer Megan's question, like, what was the inkling? How has it really shown up in my work in the world? Because this is the seed stage, and it's so hard to answer that question. It's 12th house, right? Probably Megan can probably see it better, even knowing you so well, than you can. But 9 months, you'll have a choice point around this. Remember this, because it'll be an important choice point. And in 18 months, you'll see the fruition of something that was planted right now. Maybe the drumming, or maybe something that entering into that stream and into that world leads you to that you don't even know about right now.
I have a somewhat of a suspicion. Who knows if it's going to be a part of it. We have a daughter who has struggles with a chronic illness, and we're always looking for different ways that maybe we can help with her healing. And I've been involved in trying a lot of different things along with, she has many health professionals as well. And I had some ideas like, oh, what I learned in yoga or what I learned with fascia work, maybe that could help her, blah, blah, blah. But then I started thinking, I wonder if this drumming would help release some things in her body. I don't know, maybe not. But if not her, then maybe somebody else. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So I
just
just have to get that drum.
the reason that it looks like I'm looking away is because I'm dialing the chart ahead a little bit to see, like,
Yeah.
because I think there's a really good time frame to be digging into the research about how maybe not the drumming, but what you were pursuing before. There's some kind of this is the kind of thing that really needs a longer consult. But I want to tell you that the asteroid Ceres, which is the very engaged healing mother, who is also a mother who helps a daughter through difficulties. In the sign of Virgo, the healer is hanging out in your 5th house right now, which is the house of children. So it tells me that there's an open moment right now. And there may be something coming in around this eclipse because of the way the healing planets are tied in with this. But I just wanted to highlight a time frame, which is between now and, because it's a brief time frame, is why I'm calling it. Between now and the summer solstice, like between now and the 3rd week of June, you might really double down on some of that research because it could be very productive. You might be able to access information that you haven't been able to access before. Yeah. I didn't know we were looking at that,
Wonderful.
but yeah, I just wanted to give you that as a
Thank you.
star.
Yeah.
Really good time to be doing that research.
Yeah.
And what a blessing for your daughter to have such a mom who's so heartfully engaged in
Thanks.
nurturing and protecting and researching for and all of that stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, I always think that challenges, no matter for someone else or for myself, it obviously we all can learn from it. And I do know that it has made me a better yoga instructor, because there has been people who have come to class who have chronic illnesses or chronic pain. And I say, gotcha, I know it. Let me, there's some things I can do for you, some ideas for you to help you through this.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's been interesting that way.
Yeah, I'm looking even further at the chart, and it's this eclipse, the solar eclipse today, is squaring your natal Ceres. So opening up a dynamic conversation with that Ceres Demeter archetype inside of you. So I think your intuition is spot on that this is a turning point in perhaps choosing or turning towards something new that will be of even greater help. And I think a combination between that square and then the work that transiting Ceres is doing in your 5th house could bring in some really interesting new avenues to explore over the coming couple of months. Yeah, that's really it. I'm always in awe of how the planets show up in our lives. I always feel again and again that we have this amazing council of wise ones that are available to us to help to guide us in our lives. It's beautiful when you see that in action in somebody's life and chart.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing something so tender too, Jen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Jen, did you come with any particular question that's on your heart or your mind? You revealed in your chart?
Yeah. So you talked about dreams.
Yeah.
Can we go to dreams?
Yeah, I love going to dreams.
Okay. So I had 2 dreams just last night. I had one dream last night and the other one the night before. The one last night was I was making a decision whether or not to adopt a child. And the dream 2 nights ago was I was carrying a young child who was probably like 6 years old and had just told me that her father had died. And so I was trying to take care of her. Yeah. And I was like, where is all that coming from?
I take it these are not recurring dreams for you.
I don't know. And sometimes I remember dreams and sometimes I don't, but these 2 were very vivid.
Yeah. Is
for
there
some
anything
reason.
about the two? I mean, obviously they both involve children.
Right.
In some way, you being in relationship with them and caring for them. And
That's the
is
thing.
there
I
any-
don't have any children in my life. My daughters are 30 and 32. They don't. I don't have grandchildren.
Mm, mm,
So yeah, I
So I
don't
think
know.
when um when we're talking about dreaming, the part of the chart that we're talking about is Neptune. Neptune, the outermost actual planet, right? We have Pluto, who holds that boundary between us and galactic space. And the transpersonal, it's like even beyond the collective unconscious, it's like our transpersonal being. Neptune holds the cosmic ocean and the place where we all dream. And Neptune's usually hard to talk about too, because it's the archetype of that wordless, not just transpersonal, but transhuman realm. And that's where we dream. So when I'm translating your dream into the language of astrology, I look to your chart to see, is there a transit to your natal Neptune? Because that would be waking up the dreamer within you, so to speak, who's obviously bringing potent messages to you, because we do pay attention to dreams that come in on eclipses, any new moon, but eclipses especially. So I don't have an answer, but I have some questions for you.
Mhm.
One question for you to ponder is, what was going on in your own family of origin when you were between 3 and 4 years old that may have set a pattern within you that needs to be nurtured and released? Now, I don't expect you to answer this, especially in a forum like this, but this is a question for you to take away and ponder, even if nothing rises up immediately. I'm not talking about necessarily like a big trauma. I'm talking about a story, a formative story. 3 and 4 years old, because the
Okay.
call of the chart, and I think the call of the dream, I mean, it's a part of the self that is calling to be nurtured, a part of the self that has experienced loss and separation from, like the child part of the self separated from the father part of the self. Mercury, then we would look to Mercury, the child self, and how is that relating to Saturn? And there are lots of ways to dig into this via the chart and beyond the scope of what we do together. But the questions that I would have for you are, because I agree, I don't think it's about your daughters. I think it's about you and your relationship with yourself. And also, I think it holds part of the answer to the ways that you want to show up in service in your work and service to others in this new chapter of your life. And it's big because we're talking about the next 20 years, because your moon, Pluto's on your moon. And there's something about formative years between the age of 3 and 4 that really needs to be released. And you might get clarity around that on this full moon eclipse, because it's exactly that same point in the sign of Scorpio in your 7th house. And if you clear that, and again, I'm not saying necessarily it's like a big trauma release or a thing that requires therapy, but a reframing of a story.
Can I just interrupt you just for a moment? When you
Yeah.
said that I need to release something for those years, I got chills in my body.
Really? And
Yeah.
do
It
you
was
know
like,
what it is? You don't
I
have to
have
say.
no
But
idea.
your body knows.
My
Yeah.
body knows. Yeah,
And
I
you
have
may
no
never
idea.
need to know. You may never need to know. It
Yeah.
may be releasing the grief and allowing that resourced adult part of yourself to adopt that child, right? To adopt bereaved child within you. Yeah, I think that's cool. And I think as you explore that and play with the dream more and play with that question and maybe ask other members of your family for their perspective on what was going on during those years with a spirit of curiosity, then stuff will open up just naturally. And I do think that this is part of the path forward around really being present, like fully present. I know as a yogi, you're probably like so present in your body, but
Sometimes.
so many layers, right? You're getting to the heart
Yeah.
of somatic presence in your work. And I just love the way all these symbols play together, the drumming, the call from that deep instinctive self, the call from that inner child who's bereaved in some sense, the requirement to release something, even if you don't know what it is, that you're carrying for your family that doesn't need to be carried anymore. There's lots of juicy stuff to play with here. So let that rattle around in there. Ask for some more clarifying dreams. Talk to those children, because I think it's really potent.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the fact that the oldest form of yoga is sound, and it's the vibration, and especially the sound of the beating of the Damaru that kind of looks like a rattle, you know, and it goes, and
Yeah.
I too, and I think for lots of people, that sound of a drum, especially when it has a really kind of resonant sound to it, and it starts to have that beat that maybe matches or sounds like a heartbeat or a black hole, which sort of sound the same, you know, it really pulls us into a place of like really contemplating our existence, our purpose, our just the wonder and magnificence of being alive, you know.
Yeah.
How does all this happen? And how, you know, it's amazing if we stop and contemplate it. And it sounds like the drum the other night just pulled you right into that state of wonder and mystery, and to the point of where you just had to pause and take it all in. It's amazing. But I was wondering why you said the dream would connect with something at 3 or 4, and then
her Neptune sits at 3 degrees of Scorpio. It's being challenged right now by the south node at 4 degrees of Scorpio. So that south node moves backwards. South node is a call to release. Neptune is the dreams in the 7th house. So it's actually really, it's not complicated at all. It's like literal keyword symbolism. There comes the south node saying, put something on the cosmic compost from when you were 3 and 4 years old. It's time now. In Scorpio, in order to talk to your Taurus placements so that you can be freer in that wise sacred body that we were talking about when we talked about the drumming. It's definitely all interrelated. And I really don't think you need to know the story. You know, the curious mind might want to know, but we have a lovely Mercury retrograde in Taurus. It's not going to be lovely as far as things like getting on Zoom calls or getting your mail or, you know, the car starting, but it's going to be lovely as far as having time finally to review and integrate and somaticize the experiences of the year so far, and to really do that Taurus thing of chewing on it and fully digesting it. So we get to do that for the next 3 weeks. And I feel like that's such a nice opening for you to just really sit with some of these. There's so much coming in for you right now from here, and here. And there aren't overt answers, but I think if you sit and feel all of it in your body and ask some of those curious mercurial questions while Mercury's in Taurus, you're going to get some really interesting answers, and that are going to help to push you forward on this new path. The overall sense that I get is just you're ready to let go of some baggage so that you can move forward in so much deeper into this sort of shamanic earth priestess space.
Yeah. And it's funny because once again, when you said release from your 3rd to 4th year and put it in the cosmic compost, again, when you said that, my entire body got chills. And what I have found is whenever I hear things that feel to be the truth for me, whether it's about me or somebody else, that's the way my body responds. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that response with me, because that is my job at its best, is just to be a conduit for what the planets in your chart and in the sky are saying, and just be that voice that speaks that truth. Doesn't come from me, it comes through me to you. And that those chills are validation. So I appreciate that as well, knowing that. If we can hit one of those in a conversation, I'm feeling like I'm doing
gotten 2 so far.
Bronwyn, is there anything else we should highlight before we
Oh my gosh.
And get ready
I
for the
think,
next
you know,
few weeks.
there's so much astrology that I could talk about, but I really just want to double down again on the self-care.
Yeah. So it starts today and goes.
We're in the eclipse portal for 2 weeks. This
Okay.
is the most intense day, and then we'll have the other intense day on I believe it's May 5th, the day of the full moon lunar eclipse.
Mhm.
But we're in that liminal space right now where everything's really open. That's why we need to move carefully. It's like, talk about the veils being thin. This is when the veils are really thin, is when we're in that eclipse portal. It's like a
Yeah.
bardo state. So proceed with caution.
Mhm.
And by that, I just mean, don't try to exert your will too much on things. We've got
Mhm.
Mercury retrograde. If things go wrong, just sit back. You'll figure it out after the lunar eclipse. This is part 1. We got to wait for part 2, and then we'll have all the information and we can proceed. Right now, we're just being in respect and listening to the higher self. And yeah, that's it. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Well,
Thank you so much.
you are 2 of my favorite Taurus birthdays, and
Love all the Taurus in the room. I just love it.
yeah. And we will be back in May, right? And
Yeah, it's going to feel like a long time. When we see you again, it's going to be like, oh my God, can you believe that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd
I
say
just
my
want
hair
to
will be grayer, but that's impossible.
I just want to say thank
Well.
you so much. I really appreciate sharing your knowledge and expertise. And I think I'm going to go take a nap and take a salt bath. So thank you.
Perfect.
I'm right behind you.
Thanks to both of
Thank
you.
Namaste.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.